Hey there. Welcome back to another episode of Covering Your Health with Evelyn Erives, presented by IEHP. As we promised, we're here with another episode, the second episode on the importance of emergency preparedness following the recent firestorms in Los Angeles. And with fire season expanding to really kind of a year-round scenario, and as these temperatures continue to rise and very little rain in the forecast, you know what I'm saying here, we really are making this an everyday reality, right? So that's why these type of episodes are so important, and we want to make sure that you are prepared. Like in the last episode, we want to utilize this space with open and honest conversation. And today we are welcomed by Eric Sherwin. He is a public information officer with San Bernardino County Fire, who's really going to dive into how the agency operates, why it's important to have an evacuation plan, and really just so much more. You're going to get so much out of this episode, I promise. I already wrote down so many notes and so many things that my own family is going to take away from this conversation. So I hope that you get your pen and paper out too, because I think you might need it, or at least get that phone handy and be ready to start downloading some really informative apps. And without further ado, we'll get started.
Welcome to Covering Your Health, a wellness podcast dedicated to covering all areas of living a healthy and happy lifestyle. From healthy hearts to understanding health plans and everything in between, each episode will provide you with a better understanding of managing your health, preventative care, and staying on the right path for your family's wellness journey. The Covering Your Health podcast is presented by IEHP. Now, your host, Evelyn Erives.
All right, well, let's get started. Hi, Eric Sherwin. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy to have you. Okay, so obviously the very critical time to talk, but I want to know about you. You got to tell me, how did you get into this line of work?
I started very early. I grew up in Newport Beach, and my first job in public safety was working as an ocean lifeguard for Newport.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, started that in high school, continued on into college, and at the time, if you wanted to promote out of the towers and work in the trucks or on the boats, you needed to have your EMT. So I went and got my emergency medical technician certificate while going to college at the local community college, just for lifeguarding. Mm-hmm. I had no idea that was something you could also use until another lifeguard I worked with found out he worked on ambulances in the off season.
Oh, well, that's awesome. Okay.
It was great. So
I opened a door for you.
I went to a university that had its own ambulance on campus, and they worked with paramedic partners and started seeing what paramedics were doing. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, that's kind of cool. Mm-hmm. So ultimately went to paramedic school and worked as a paramedic for a long time, and worked all over southwestern United States. Had the ability, I worked in international race support, worked for NASCAR for a few years here at the California Auto Club Speedway, worked on a helicopter, and then finally started seeing the fire department, what they were doing, and specifically San Bernardino County Fire.
Wow, okay.
And said, hey, I think I want to give this a shot. So,
what age were you at that point? So you had all this already. You've been doing a paramedic all over, which sounds like a ton of fun when you're young.
Yes, absolutely. Right? It was fun. You work so hard to get through paramedic school that it was, what exactly can I do with this license that I now have? Yeah. Aside from working on an ambulance.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you start working these races, now you have paramedics working on cruise ships. You can travel the world and get paid for it. Really, really fun. Yeah. The thing is, what is the retirement? Do I really want to be loading a gurney into an ambulance when I'm 65 years old? Mm-hmm. And that's where the fire service became very attractive. The ability to continue to be a paramedic, but also increase your skill set, start looking into some of these specialties like urban search and rescue, aviation, and have a retirement on the back end so that hopefully you're not doing this when you're 65.
Yeah. Many pathways.
Yes. Very true. And they come together. And now there's even more when we see in different entry points and talking to people and their stories of how they came to the fire service. Some were in law enforcement, some were prior service military and had that plan. And still to this day, people that grew up, I knew from the time I was 5 years old I was going to be a firefighter. Mm-hmm. So there's many pathways into this career.
It's funny. I think that's with every kind of career, I always wanted to be a radio DJ, or I always wanted to be in front of the camera. For a lot of people, it had to be spoken into them almost, some
Yes.
people, no, don't you know you're really good at this? Oh, did you know you like life, like being a lifeguard? Mm-hmm. Did you know there's other pathways down this avenue? I mean, you probably got into it at first because you just love the ocean.
100%. Grew up playing water polo, and that was the natural. If you played water polo, you were going to be a guard. Mm-hmm. And it was crazy to think back now to the responsibility that we put on, at the time, 16-year-old kids.
Oh my gosh, right?
Like, you now are responsible for anybody that shows up in this quarter-mile stretch of beach.
Oh my gosh.
Some days you might have 100 people. There are towers where you literally have 16-year-old kids vested with the responsibility of the safety of 5,000 people in that area.
Oh my God. That's
and
crazy.
They're really good at it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Teaching responsibility at that age, and it's still that work ethic that carried me through to this point. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of fun, but I still look back fondly on those days sitting in those towers watching people have a good time.
Oh, that's so cool. What a cool way to start your career.
Yeah.
And you didn't even know it.
No, didn't know it would get me to here, but
that's very cool.
Yeah, now a firefighter, and now we're here doing this.
Having this conversation, with your position now. So San Bernardino County Fire covers more than 20,000 square miles of our region. That's massive. How does that agency train for all of the terrain that is here? Now, I know you've been all over terrain based on just your backstory, but how do you train for all of that?
You bring up a good point. San Bernardino County, it's the largest county in the United States. It's over 20,000 miles. We're responsible for providing service to over 19,000 of those square miles.
Gosh, wow.
And we're an all-risk department. That means we provide fire, EMS, rescue services across the entire footprint of our service area. And it's very diverse terrain. That's another thing that attracted me to this department. If you get bored working in this department, it's your own fault.
Right.
Because you can work in the dense urban areas of San Bernardino City, where we're sending a whole lot of resources to an incident. You can go work up in the mountain communities, be up in the clean, fresh air where, the potential, the call volume isn't as high, but the potential can be greater.
Right,
when you're
because
working.
of the denseness of the forest and things.
San Bernardino National Forest has the largest residential population of any national forest in the country.
I did not know that. Oh, that's fascinating.
Yes. So the calls aren't as frequent, but the threat and the potential is constantly there. Mm-hmm. You can go work out in the vast expanse of the Mojave National Preserve. You can work out in Baker, where you can call for backup, and we'll get it on the road, but there's a high likelihood that you're going to bring a resolution to your incident before that backup arrives.
Yeah, right.
So, work out on the Colorado River at Havasu Landing or Needles, where you're working on a fireboat, doing amazing things. You can go to our wildland division, work on a hand crew, be a heavy equipment operator, pushing a bulldozer up the side of a mountain.
Wow.
Go to aviation, where you're working with our sheriff partners.
Yeah.
In a variety of missions.
So cool.
There are so many opportunities within this department, and that's what really attracted me to it.
So how do you train? So does every region or every area train differently, for the snow or for, the mountains or for the deserts and the heat?
So as an all-risk, the fire service has a really fun history. If we go back, a little bit deeper into history, the fire service was often a second job for the men at the time.
Oh,
they all existed in other trades. You had electricians, you had framers, you had plumbers. And that's where I think the concept of, hey, when we don't know what to do, call the fire department. Because there's a high likelihood one of the guys on that engine showing up is going to have an idea on how to approach the situation. Flash forward to current time, that's still the reality. We're still showing up at these incidents. But we've now realized that we need additional training for some of these. And some of those specialties include hazardous materials, urban search and rescue, specializing in our wildland environment. So how does County Fire approach that? Everybody is trained to a minimum standard that allows us to get the ball rolling at any incident.
Okay.
But then to recognize the importance of, hey, if we have somebody that's stuck down in a tunnel, we have a whole group of people that are specially trained and equipped to mitigate that emergency. So we are required to perform 2 hours of training every shift. And the bulk of that training is maintaining currencies on a lot of these certificates that we possess. And it follows an annual cycle. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about wildfire, but and this is firefighters across the state of California, are required to renew proficiencies in wildland training. We begin that this month, and we complete it in April, so that everybody is current. All our gear is ready to go for when the land starts drying out, and we traditionally begin to see wildfires start.
Yeah, I know this year's been a little bit different with that kind of with no water. We haven't had any water at all this winter. So
yes, on the heels of 2 above average rainfall years, there was a very healthy grass crop that was allowed to grow back.
I remember,
throughout Southern California.
Yeah, it was really green for a while. We were like, wow, look at this.
And then we had a really hot summer.
Yes.
And it all dried out.
Yeah.
If we think back to late spring, early summer, the grass crop had cured, and we had some pretty significant grass fires, but all the heavier fuels maintained their moisture.
Yeah.
We proceeded through a very hot summer. That all dried out, and that's when we began seeing those long duration fires.
Yeah.
When we look at bridge and line and airport all burning at the same time, that speaks to what the region as a whole went through weather-wise. And we're still in that situation because now we're in a significantly dry season. These winds are not atypical. The strength are, but typically when we have these winds come through at this time of year, we've already had wetting rains.
Yeah.
So the fire doesn't have a fuel to carry it. Now we have fuel to carry the fire, and we have wind to push the fire.
Oh, goodness.
And we're seeing fire activity that we traditionally see September.
Yeah, I was going to say like October or September. That's usually when I remember those kinds of things happening. In fact, that's when we had the initial round of fires here in the Inland Empire. So that's so fascinating, so much to touch on. But there, with your training and your specialties, it's so amazing to think when you think of a firefighter, there's just really this well-rounded person. It's not just this one. They're not just holding a hose and aiming it at a fire. There's just all these avenues of what you do, and that's 100%. To be commended.
You work so hard to get your foot in the door with the department. And when you come to county fire and you pass probation, it's congratulations. What are you going to do next?
Yeah, what's your specialty?
Correct.
Yeah.
You're going to specialize. Is it going to be going to paramedic school? Is it going to be becoming a heavy rescue technician, urban search and rescue, hazmat, aircraft rescue firefighting? Are you going wildland? Are you going helicopter? The days of being a one-trick pony, the call volume and the call types in the area we cover don't allow that.
Yeah.
So we make sure we have a roster in each of these specialties.
That's so cool. It really, really is. Well, on that note, what type of role does a public information officer play in all of that in case of an emergency?
My role as public information officer, or PIO, is to, the easiest definition for us is to provide timely and accurate information to our affected residents and stakeholders for an emergency incident. When we think of, and we use something called the incident command structure to handle our incidents, and that ensures unity of command and chain of command, that each person assigned to an incident only has one supervisor, that you're not getting pulled in multiple directions. The public information officer's job is to act as the spokesperson for the incident commander.
Okay.
To take that obligation off of their shoulders so they can remain focused on mitigating the incident.
Right.
So to that point, we develop and maintain a really nice relationship with our local media, from print, TV, radio, even to our network news and international news. Because when there's smoke in the air, the phones start ringing. Hey, what do you have going on? And that's very important, because the media is another way that we use, or another avenue we use, to inform the public of what's taking place. It's a symbiotic relationship. Many times the media is looking to tell the story.
Right.
And we're going to provide the facts that support that story, factually correct information. Outside of emergency incidents, we're talking about what the department does on a daily basis. What are your firefighters doing today? Are we training on something? Here's a community outreach program. Hey, check it out. We went and did a school visit and talked to a lot of people about fire safety. So we're the messaging platform. And I think we'll get into a little bit later about some of those platforms. And the evolution of our job and things that have made our job easier or easier to communicate with the people we serve.
It's like social media. I mean, it's got to be a little easier now, right?
The short answer is absolutely.
I mean, social media is a whole other beast, but I imagine.
It is. And it's, there's pros and cons to everything. Again, and I keep talking anecdotally and going back, gone are the days of the traditional news cycle.
Yeah.
When somebody sees smoke in the air, they'll turn on the evening news. Hey, what was happening up there on the hill?
True.
Or go out and get the morning paper. Did somebody write a story on it? Social media has created a thirst for instant information.
Oh, yeah.
And it's available. Now somebody is just as likely, they're going to turn on the TV to see what's happening, but they're more likely to pick up their phone.
Yeah.
And that was our entrance into the social media space. Like this is where people are going, we need to be here.
Oh, yeah.
And it started with Facebook and then Twitter, and it's expanded into Instagram, TikTok. I mean, we're going where the people are because we want them, again, to get factually correct information.
Oh, of course.
We're not good at existing in that void. If there's a void of information, somebody's going to fill it. And if we're not out there quickly providing that information, we're going to wind up spending a fair amount of time unwinding incorrect information.
Makes perfect sense to me. Yep,
Yeah.
It really does. So obviously we're not immune to fires here. We've got a ton of brush fires that have happen every year. Why do you think that the Los Angeles fires have been such an eye-opening experience for so many people?
It's been an eye-opening experience just because of the scope of these incidents and how many people, we're used to seeing fire chew through wildland.
Right.
When it gets into a community, it gets a lot more real.
Yeah.
Firefighters are very accustomed to working in these large fires. When it gets into communities, it hits us. By no means am I saying it hits us as much as a homeowner.
Oh, right.
But we take that seriously.
Right.
Our goal is to stop the fire. And when fire takes homes, that's a hard one. That's a very hard one. We approach any incident with 3 priorities. The first one being life. We need to save lives. We need to remove the endangered. We need to mitigate the incident, and we need to provide stabilization and ultimately a resolution to the incident.
Right.
When fire approaches a community, our priorities are solely focused on life safety. And the reality is structures are going to burn so that lives can be saved. Which comes back to something that we've been talking about for years, but you've heard us try and drive this home throughout this season of please respect the evacuation orders.
Yep.
The bridge fire was a great example of that, where we saw a fire rapidly explode into a community. Wrightwood is a designated fire-wise community with a fire safe council. They have a plan in place, and they didn't even wait for evacuation orders.
They just went.
They know their community. They know their mountain. They saw fire, and they left.
Yeah.
That allowed us to come into that community with the mindset of, now that life safety has been addressed, we can focus on saving structures.
Yeah.
And it was the community's plan that allowed us to focus on saving the town.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. And it's a cooperative effort.
It really is. And it's going to help. It helps everybody in the end.
When we have communities working with public safety agencies, the benefit, I don't know if you can quantify it other than looking at, and I use Wrightwood because it was one of our incidents. It's our town,
I remember.
And I can speak very specifically to that. There's a huge benefit to that, to having communities that engage with their fire departments, that have their fire safe councils, that have a plan in place and don't wait.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes if you wait until an order comes up, you might be behind the power curve.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why this has been so eye-opening, because I think there's towns like Wrightwood who obviously they were being proactive. We know that this could be a big problem if we have a fire here. And then you have communities like Pacific Palisades where it's almost like, well, we didn't think this even could happen here like this, right? So now hopefully with everything and everybody seeing what's happened over the last few weeks, specifically, more cities can get these plans in place. They can have even just your home have a plan in place to be ready to go in case you have to.
Well, and we have, you know, the one fun, or the not fun, but the one thing I like about LA is there's no hesitation to go wall to wall on news coverage to bring that accurate, immediate information into people's homes.
True, very true.
At the same time, we will watch a wildfire burn all day long throughout the news day. And sometimes that mindset comes of this fire's burning and I've been watching it for 8 hours. And it's easy to forget how quickly these fires can explode and impact a community. And that's why having a plan is so important.
Yeah.
And utilizing that plan. And I think we're going to talk about that here in a few minutes.
Yeah, we will. How can someone get started? Let's talk about it now. So how can someone get started making a plan? How and what kind of things should they include in their go kit?
Okay.
I think everybody's been using that word now, right?
Yes.
Wait, what's in my go kit?
It is. And here's the great thing about planning. It's never too early to begin planning. And the cool thing is, what I like about planning, sometimes it seems like a daunting task, but you get to tailor it to your needs, the needs of you, your family, and your community. So I like talking with my family members. Hey, this is where my head is at in this planning process. What do we need to do if we need to leave? And the more ahead of time you plan, the easier it becomes.
Yeah.
You know, and when you look,
and less scary, probably, even if you have kids involved.
Correct.
Right?
You know, and this goes, let's take it all the way back to the beginning to me being a 16-year-old kid going through Lifeguard Academy. The whole goal was to identify a victim before they know they're in trouble and to get to them before panic sets in. Because once panic sets in, it's a lot more difficult to maintain a clear thought process.
Yeah, you're right.
And planning prevents panic. I've never thought about this. What do I need to grab? You know, when you see people that evacuate in a hurry, it would be interesting to, okay, hey, are you willing to share what you put in your car? You know, and people like, I just started grabbing stuff.
Whatever I could grab. Yeah.
As opposed to having a plan like, I know, you know, we'll talk about what happens if you have 5 minutes to go? What happens if you have 30 minutes to go? What happens if you have an hour to go? And that determines where your priorities should be, and it should already be identified. You know, and that go bag is your default. Your 5 minutes, this is what I'm getting.
This is the last thing I can grab, yeah.
There are a lot of apps. San Bernardino County, our Office of Emergency Services, has developed a really nice app called SB Ready. And it gives you ideas on how to begin developing your own plan. A very important component of a plan is evacuation routes. Where are you going to go? And realizing where you live. You know, if you live in a community that only has one way out, your trigger point to get out, and when we're looking at posting evacuation warnings for orders, those are things we take into consideration. What's the population density within a given community? What are the evacuation routes? What's the integrity of those evacuation routes? When do we need to hit that management action point to start getting those residents out of that area?
That makes a lot of sense in my head now, because I think in some cases I was wondering, I'm like, these houses don't look like they would necessarily be in danger. Why are they evacuating them? But that makes perfect sense. Well, if there's only one in and out, they need to start getting out now just in case.
Or if my plan says I'm going north.
Yeah.
And now suddenly I have a fire that's coming from the north.
Right.
Have I already identified what my evacuation route is going to be? And realizing that half of if there's a north and south evacuation, If half of that means the half of your residents, we've now doubled the traffic on the south. It's going to take longer to get out.
Yeah, it is. And we saw that with, some of the fires recently.
100%.
They had only one lane and cars ended up being abandoned.
I come back to the bridge fire when it came into Wrightwood, and we lost our western evacuation route.
Oh, right.
It was only east out Highway 2 to the 138. And we had, and again, comes back to planning, to working with our sheriff partners, CHP partners. Like, we need to make sure we can decompress Highway 138 because it's during the evening commute, such that we can prioritize these residents getting out versus people moving on through, our desert communities trying to get home to Phelan, Pinion Hills.
Yeah.
And it comes back to a plan.
It really does.
Yeah.
It really does. And I feel like my son has brought this up to us, and he literally just walked up. We've been watching all the fire coverage. We're just going through, like everybody else, shock and sadness and all of these things. And my son's like, "What would you take, Mom?" And like he just walked up to me. He's like, "What would you take? What would you take right now?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, I don't even think I've thought about that."
Yeah.
Aiden, that's a great question, and we all probably should need to sit down and talk about this. And he's like, "Maybe we could put something on our fridge." And I was like, "That's not a bad idea. Like, let's have a little thing that just is up there just to remind us if we see it. We're like, oh yeah, that's my job. My job's to grab this."
And almost as important as having a plan is reevaluating your plan.
Yeah.
Put yourself in the situation of what our LA residents went through.
Yeah.
How does your plan hold up? And this is a time to be very humble and honest with yourself. And this is where it helps to talk with a family member or somebody else that has a pretty good plan.
Yeah.
And talk with your neighbor, talk with your friend, talk with your coworker. Hey, has your plan changed at all based on what we just saw?
Right. Good point.
When we have 2 hours or 24 hours to evacuate versus you have 15 minutes.
Yep, and that's it.
What are you taking? So to that point, a go kit. And again, you get to tailor this to your needs. But a go kit needs to include some of those things that we don't have the ability to take when we don't have the time. So how do we do that? We talk about having all your documents. So are your documents in a filing cabinet? Are they locked in a safe? Are they behind something that you might not have the time to get to? The easiest way to do that now with technology is store it all in a flash drive.
Yep.
Go through your house, run a 5-minute video looking at stuff. So God forbid your house is destroyed in an incident, whether it be a fire, earthquake, flood. It's a lot easier for you when you begin working with your insurance adjusters that you can document, no, this is what I have. And a thumb drive takes up no space in your backpack.
I know. It's just so easy.
No space.
It's almost too easy. You don't think of it.
Those critical documents, when you look at birth certificates, Social Security cards, insurance, that can take up space, especially people that are carrying multiple policies or riders for various things in their home. As long as you have some documentation to help start the process. And if you can digitally store that, it minimizes the footprint of stuff you need to take should you not be able to bring it along with you.
We were just talking with Erica Hernandez on the last episode. We were talking about she had lost her house in the Edge Hill fire. And one of the things she's going through right now still is remembering all the things in her house for her claims. And she's just like, I wish I had just taken video of my home. I wish I would have just gone through, because they want they want to know how many plates you had. They want to know how many forks you had. Like it's down to those kinds of things. And then let alone the things you're not thinking about, the family heirlooms and all of these other things. And she's like, that's one of the biggest pieces of advice I would tell someone is make sure you're documenting the things that are in your house. You're not thinking about it. It's so easy now. Take your camera, your phone out and just film it.
And when you're working with your insurance company, you can minimize so much of the back and forth.
Yes.
If you've taken a couple hours out of one of your days to document what you have. We're paying these insurance policies. Now it's the time, if we're processing a claim, if you're in the unfortunate place where you have to play, and it doesn't matter what the situation is.
Yeah, you're right.
If you are the victim of burglary and people take stuff out, you don't want to put them in the situation of, I'm sorry, but I need to force you to provide proof that this was actually.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. Or floods or any of that. Yeah. You're totally right.
It's hard to find an area that in this country that isn't immune from a type of natural disaster.
Mm-hmm.
When we look at hurricanes on the east and south, we look at flooding in the south, we have earthquakes over here, we have wildfires. California is pretty unique in that, we have multiple threats.
Yeah.
We live under the constant threat of earthquakes. We look at wildfire. We look at the potential tsunami for our coastal residents. There are a number of threats. Wildfire, sometimes we think we're going to have enough time.
Mm-hmm.
There's no time for an earthquake. There can be little warning for a tsunami. Mud and debris flows, we can recognize the potential, but from when that debris starts moving to the time to get out,
no time. Yeah.
And that's going to be the next threat on the heels of these wildfires.
Right.
And it's something that our management teams, as soon as, or even before the fire's out, we're beginning to assess mud and debris flow potential.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw that happen over in the Mount Baldy Canyon, where there's K-rail up throughout that community, both through LA County and San Bernardino County. And they're already talking about how to address that very real threat over the Eaton and Palisades fire scars. We need precipitation. We need rain. The whole region needs rain to finally put this fire threat to rest for a few months.
Mm-hmm.
We need little amounts of rain at slow rates.
I gotcha. We don't need massive
storms.
In a request.
Yes.
You're right.
That being said, it's something that all of our counties are already talking about.
Yeah.
And we began talking about this last summer on the heels of bridge, line, and airport fires.
Yes.
What's that flood response going to look like? And we need to be ready for when it happens. The reality is there's so much material up on those hillsides that our ability to manage that does not exist. We can try and minimize the impact, but there's going to be an impact. And because of that, when evacuation orders come up for mud and debris flow, they need to be respected.
Yeah.
Fire moves through a community, more often than not, it leaves the road system intact.
Mm-hmm.
When 8 feet of mud comes through a community, we can't get in and you can't get out.
Yes, right.
And it takes a lot longer to move mud than it does to move fallen trees from a wind event.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. Does technology play a role in helping with some of this? I mean, let's talk about that because there's so much technology now. We've all been using apps and we've all been using our phones for the last forever. But now for the fires, we're all learning about these other technology-based apps that we can have to know more. How is that playing a role in firefighting now?
One of the goals that Fire Chief Dan Muncie for our district has put forth is we are a fire district that is going to innovate. We are going to leverage current and emerging technology to the greatest extent possible.
Perfect.
There are a lot of programs and apps out there that are available not only to the public, but other apps that are available to public safety. Mm-hmm. And County Fire has been working very hard to incorporate that technology to the benefit of the citizens and also us. Mm-hmm. What are some examples? Genesis is a great program that's coming out that is helping us to develop evacuation zones. It wasn't too long ago that the fire would be coming down and we would have a map out going, okay, we want our evacuation box to run from this street to this street. Well, what do you think about up there? Yeah, maybe we should bring it down. Now with Genesis, they've already been pre-identified, and that's through the various counties.
I've seen that.
Yes.
I've seen that in work. And it's fascinating because it's not like it's all squares or anything like that. They're kind of different shapes,
yes.
but it's like, oh, my house is in this particular zone.
100%. Mm-hmm. And it's a lot easier for us. We bring up the map, we look at Genesis, and it's just 1, 2, 3, 4. These zones go.
Yeah.
And that gets shipped off to our Sheriff's Department Emergency Operations Division, and they begin crafting that message, and it minimizes the timeline from when the decision is made to when the citizen is notified.
Right. That's technology for you. So cool.
What else do we have? Can't not talk about watch duty.
Oh my gosh, I know. I was going to bring it up, but I'm like, Watch Duty has been, I mean, it's everywhere now. It's,
yes.
And it's for good reason. It's so reliable.
Absolutely good reason. Watch Duty was created, and I had the huge fortune to meet with the creator of this app a couple weeks ago.
So cool.
And to hear his vision and how this app came to be. And you're right, it provides immediate information. They have seasoned people, and most of this is driven by radio traffic and monitoring radios and getting that information out. Now, there's been some pushback that Watch Duty is faster than we are.
Oh.
Which is not, let's explain this.
Yeah, I want to hear that.
Not faster than we are because we're the ones initiating the radio
traffic.
Right,
you're the one saying what's happening.
But there's a process. Mm-hmm. There's a process where information makes its way from the field to incident command to that decision point being made. And that's the whole advantage of the incident command system and maintaining that 30,000-foot view over an incident, where we might have a division group supervisor who says, hey, I need this highway shut down. Mm-hmm. And he's over here and he's realizing what he needs. And you have the broader scope that's maintaining that broader view of going, hey, if we're going to have other impacts if we shut down this entire freeway.
Okay.
However, we can meet the division's needs if we shut down a 1-mile section of that. And that's the few times that Watch Duty might be incorrect is they're going off saying, hey, we've closed this freeway. Mm-hmm. And what ultimately winds up is a smaller segment of that.
Right.
When we hear, hey, we're going to evacuate this community, understanding that comes from a division that goes to incident command and unified incident command. We have fire people there. We have law enforcement. Here in California, law enforcement declares evacuations based on recommendations from fire professionals on where we think this fire is going to go.
Right.
But obviously that captain, that deputy chief there at the command post is not the one creating that evacuation notice. Mm-hmm. You know, he or she has a whole staff underneath him. So that message comes up, that message goes down, that message is crafted, that message is disseminated. The bigger the incident, the more moving parts there are, it takes a little bit longer for that message and decision to be made. Mm-hmm. So Watch Duty is great at priming people for what is likely to happen.
That's what I was going to say. It's almost like just hey, be alert, this might happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. And Watch Duty continues to expand their capabilities, and when they start integrating with other software that's out there, such as providing accurate fire perimeters and fire perimeters over time. So you can literally go back and scroll and see, okay, the fire was here, now it's to here, now it's to here.
They work with Genesis though too,
they
right?
Do.
Because I've seen that on the Watch Duty app. So I'm like, oh, that's so interesting how they integrated that.
And what I took away from my meeting with Mr. John Mills was his commitment to continue to expand his product to make sure that people are getting actionable information. You know, and if we can work with them, I can't fault him for being quick.
No.
And he respects the process that takes place on our end.
Oh yeah.
And realizing there is a place for this and an important place for citizens in the sense not everybody has a radio scanner. Not everybody has the ability to listen to radios like a news station that's monitoring, looking for if something happens. Mm-hmm. But if it's a push-based product rather than pull, I don't have to go to a website and look for information. This app is going to alert me when they think I need to pay attention to something that is happening near me.
So cool. I mean, I could see how that little pushback might happen because I think in some cases I've seen it where it's like per radio traffic, 10 more units are being requested. I think, I think to myself, I'm like, wow, is that overstepping? I thought that at one point. I was like, I wonder if that's overstepping because they're listening to this. But also on the other hand, I want to know that there is more going to that fire right now because that means that fire is not controlled yet. Those people in the neighborhood, they probably need to be knowing they need to be getting out of there.
And this is a product that's been out there in blogs and websites for years. People listening to scanner traffic and posting the information.
Right. I've seen it on like Twitter for many years. That's the way it used to kind of get out.
To have an app that pushes it to you rather than having to pull it is, it's going to save lives.
Yeah, I do agree.
100%.
Are there any other? I know you were saying there's a host of things on Ready SB.
So, Ready SB, the other program we really want at least our residents to do is to register for the TEN system, Telephone Emergency Notification System.
Okay.
We have two options available to us when we want to mass notify impacted residents.
Okay.
The most commonly known is WEA, and that's the Wireless Emergency Alert System.
Okay.
And that is an indiscriminate program where we draw a box and we want every cellular device capable of receiving a signal in here to receive the following message. TENS requires a user to register their phone number. The good thing about TENS is that if you're out of the affected area, you will still get the alert.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes perfect sense.
So somebody in Wrightwood that is down the hill at work will get that message saying, hey, there's an evacuation going on at home. And we use both of them. We don't use one or the other as the county because, especially when we look at Wrightwood and we have so many visitors to the community, especially this time of year when the mountains open.
Yeah. Anybody
coming into that community is going to be captured through WEA. Anybody that lives in that community that wants to be alerted whether or not they're in the community at the time needs to register for TENS. Because the WEA system, the way WEA looks at it as, okay, this person isn't in the community, so they're not threatened, therefore they don't receive the alert.
Right.
But TENS is available through the SB Ready app. It's available through our website. We'll get to that a little bit later on how to register for TENS. I think I did it in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a name, it's an email, it's an address. You can enter your home address. You can enter your work address. And then the number that you want to be notified at.
That's great.
So TENS is a huge, yet another way for us to communicate to people in an emergency situation. You don't get day-to-day updates. We don't push out, hey, there's wind coming. This is evacuation warnings, evacuation orders.
Is that just for San Bernardino County?
For the TENS system, for us, yes, we'll be pushing out to San Bernardino. Now, for residents in Riverside County, you can go to Riverside County's website, and they have ways to register. And then they even have cities within the county, within Riverside, that maintain their own systems. And Riverside County has done a very good job of making it easy for residents to figure out where to go to register so that they can be alerted in the case of an emergency.
Awesome.
So again, WEA is passive, TENS is active. It takes the end user to register to get the alert.
Perfect. That's great information. And I'll put as much as I can in our description too on the podcast so everybody can get those links right away.
Perfect. What are some apps that we as the fire service are using?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
To help us do our job? Something Alert California. It's a product put together. It comes out of UC San Diego through a variety of cameras that are posted up and down the state to monitor for the start of wildfires. That acknowledges a heat source. The camera can swing to it. They're automated or they can be manually directed based on our end users. And there's specific people that have the ability to tilt and rotate cameras. To zoom in and, hey, here's smoke. And yes, what is this? What's it doing? Where's it going? To begin for our command centers to identify this might need a reinforced response and begin moving assets into the area. And there are hundreds of cameras. Just throughout this region. And it's not uncommon for our dispatch center to already be looking at a camera and we'll see it pop up as a note, or a dispatcher will come over and talk to us. Hey, we have smoke showing in the San Sylvain 1 camera. And then on our tablet, so technology, County Fire, all of our emergency apparatus, we use iPads, and we run a software program called Tablet Command, which is a very strong tool for us. as far as being able to be dispatched to an incident, routed to an incident, to see other responding units on the map. When you talk about safety, just going to a simple traffic collision where one engine's coming from the east, one engine's coming from the north, and the captain can say, hey, you have engine 2s coming from the east up at this intersection, just be on lookout, so we can minimize red-on-red events.
Yeah.
Asset tracking. Once we get to a scene, once we get to a large incident and we begin assigning these resources into these divisions, and we can have 30, 40, 50, 60 units, who's where? You know, we used to write it on a whiteboard. Before a whiteboard, it was a legal pad. And then in the Santa Ana wind, when we were using legal pads, just when you get it all figured out, here comes a gust of wind, tears it off into the fire, and you're like, okay, I had who, where? Tablet Command allows us to digitally assign resources so we can track them.
Nice.
We can set timers so we can check in on them. The radio traffic got weird. It got scratchy. I didn't quite hear who I got assigned to. Well, I see the incident commander moved me to Division Alpha. Okay, who's running Division Alpha? Oh, it's Captain 221. All right, now I know my point of contact. I know where I'm working. I can see on the map where all these units are lined out. All right, this is where I'm going. It's a very powerful tool, and we've tied in with Alert California. We can bring the cameras up.
That's so cool.
Yes.
It's really cool.
That's software. From hardware, let's talk about a new program, our unmanned aerial systems, or drones.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
County Fire is trialing right now a program called Drone as a First Responder, or DFR. And we are conducting this study in the city of San Bernardino. We're running it at night. It's a 30-day study right now to check the feasibility and is this the right thing to do. But we are launching a drone using drone operator and their suppression personnel to the call type we're investigating are unknown type fires. That's where somebody has called 911. It says they think they see a fire, they might see smoke, but it's not a building, it's not a car, it's not vegetation. I don't know what it is. We get a lot of these calls in the river bottom with homeless encampments. And they're hard to locate when you're down at the road level. And if you can see it, well, what's the pathway to get into that? In the last 3 months of 24, October, November, December, the city of San Bernardino alone ran 833 unknown type fires.
Oh, wow.
The majority of those fires, we were unable to locate anything. It was a good intent caller by a passerby. Good intent call by a passerby, thought they might have seen a fire, but ultimately there was no fire. Of the remaining, a significant subset of the remaining calls were warming fires that presented no threat. It's an attended fire, no chance of it escaping based on where it's burning. And we allow those to burn. That's a legal fire. It's legal to allow somebody to stay warm.
Yeah.
But if we look at an engine, it might take them 30 minutes to locate and ultimately access to find out that this is a permitted fire or it was unfounded.
And that takes away a resource.
Correct.
In case there is a fire.
So if engine 1 is looking for this call and a chest pain comes out in their district, now that resident is waiting for engine 2 to come across. They're waiting longer. We are now sending drones to these types of incidents as the only unit dispatched.
Wow.
And if they're unable to locate, the call's cleared out. If they can locate it and determine that there is no threat, the call is cleared out. If there is a threat, but it's an attended fire, that drone has a PA system on it, and they can speak to the person attending fire. This is San Bernardino County Fire. You need to put the fire out. And we have yet to advise somebody of that and not have compliance with it.
Wow.
If they do determine, hey, this is a fire and it needs to be addressed, we can add an engine company or whatever is needed to that response, and then that drone stays overseen to direct them in. You know, well, what is my access on this? Hey, you're going to come in, and they're watching them come in.
With
okay,
the bird's eye
hang
view.
a left on that dirt road, come
Awesome.
down, stop there, jump out. I need you to move off to your right 150 feet. You'll be right on top of it. So in the early stages, the first couple weeks of this study, we found that it's very, very efficient.
Oh, that's great.
And we don't deal with traffic. We don't have to drive around the buildings. We go over them. We have response times that we're measuring in seconds. We have calls that we're clearing out in 4 minutes when the response time for the engine just to get in the area would be 6 minutes.
Yeah.
So early indications show that this is a very successful tool that we can use to the benefit of the citizens and firefighters.
That sounds amazing.
It really is.
It's so cool. So how do you know after these 30 days that if there's a group of people that decide, okay, we're going to move forward with this, or it has to be adopted by the county, or how does that work?
Absolutely. So
because I'm going to vote yes.
The manager of the robotics program, and the drone is just one example. The UAS, the unmanned aerial systems, and we say UAS because the drone is the UAV. It's just a flying unit.
Yeah.
But when you look at the suite of sensors, and it's equipped with high definition cameras, thermal imaging cameras.
Yeah.
And then the operator and all the software back at the base station, and they're working from atop a building. They have line of sight of these guys moving around. So we have the aerial systems. We have ground-based systems. We have subterranean systems. We're working or looking at aquatic systems that can submerge and go locate submerged victims and bring them to the surface.
Oh my gosh.
This is technology that's out here now. And does it have a place in public safety?
Yeah.
And we have a fire chief who's supported by a board of supervisors that is willing to investigate that and see if it will benefit the residents.
Right. Well, that makes me really happy.
It's a fun time. You know, there's a joke. Two things that firefighters fear, or two things that firefighters don't like, are change and the way things are.
That's funny.
Like I said, and I keep coming back to having a fire chief with an executive staff who are supported by the board of supervisors that are willing to do their part to try to move the needle.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a very fun time to be a part of this agency.
That's super cool. I'm going to have another talk with my son and say, so you were caring about the Ready, Set, Go. How about being a firefighter?
Yes.
Before I let you go, this has been so informative, and I really appreciate you being here. Let's talk about 3 takeaways. I always end the podcast this way. Just to wrap things up, what are the 3 main things that you want our listeners and our viewers to come away with today?
If you take anything away from our conversation here, it's never too early to begin planning. And the easiest way to begin planning is look at our app, Ready SB County. It will walk you through it. And there are a variety of other tools out there. There is a tool out there that's right for you that will make it easy for you to feel comfortable making a plan to keep yourself and your family safe. Register for TENS. If you live in San Bernardino County, please register for TENS. Nothing would make me happier than if an evacuation order came down to your community and you got frustrated by how much your phone was going off. I don't want there to be a doubt in anybody's mind that we think you need to leave.
Yes.
If your community comes under evacuation order, please respect it. Like I said, we have a very different mindset when we come into a community knowing that life safety has been addressed.
Right.
That gives us the greatest chance possible of moving on to the next step, which is protecting homes and structures.
Right.
Those 3 things.
That's perfect. That is
Make
wonderful.
a plan, register for TENS, and heed those evacuation orders.
And get out when you have to get out. Yes. Thank you so much. Oh, this has been really, really wonderful. I appreciate your time. I appreciate everything that you're doing to keep us safe. And I hope to have you back again. This would be wonderful.
Thanks for the opportunity, Evelyn. It's been fun.